This video is brought to you by Surfshark. Stick around to hear more about the tremendous discount that they have offered to our entire community. The concept of a console war, contrary to popular belief, is about 40 years old. Originally pertaining to the Fairchild Channel F and the Atari VCS, the framework of one private company competing against another private company to promote their console and harvest a greater market share is not new in the slightest, not at all. But the modern definition has coalesced around two major brands and roughly 5 system generations. Sony and Microsoft now compete for the wider console gaming market in a war that takes place over the span of decades. However, each individual iteration becomes significantly less important when you understand the ultimate goal. Today, I'd like to discuss why this console war is extremely one-sided, because one company is fighting battles, and effectively so, I might add, while the other fights an actual war. And eventually, one side, on its current trajectory that is, will be the undisputed and untouchable winner. Here is where one side or the other, no matter what I say, it doesn't matter, will get extremely upset. No, it won't. My favorite console is better. Yes, okay, sure, fine, whatever. I'm not saying one console is better right now than the other. I'm saying the companies have a distinctly different focus, and without major modifications to one company's strategy, their existing strategy that is, their days are numbered with regards to capitalization on the casual audience, which, for better or for worse, if we are totally honest here, is what the bulk of the console market really is, a casual audience. I won't beat around the bush for 10 minutes just to make you hear me say it so that anyone who wants to rage click away can just do so right now. Sony is on track to lose the console war, while Microsoft, in the short term, will likely lose a series of future battles, maybe, but without a drastic change of direction from Sony, they will eventually construct so much value for their player base that even a veritable onslaught of popular exclusive titles, which Sony is likely to have, probably won't even make a dent. This is not going to be overnight, and it will probably be a very grueling process to boot, but Xbox through Microsoft have a completely different approach and are focused on new age tactics through contemporary technology in order to offer their users something well and truly beyond the standards they have come to expect over recent years. I don't say this as a diehard fan of either console. I played quite a bit of Xbox growing up, but also had an original PlayStation and the PlayStation 2 for Andretti Racing and NBA Street respectively. I switched to PS4 in college, switched back to Xbox One afterwards, and now, as a function of my career in content creation, have both an Xbox One S and a PlayStation 4 Pro to engage in every high-profile new release title that comes out, which I feel is relevant to the channel, just for the sake of coverage. I might have slightly gravitated towards Xbox at times, I guess, but it's no trouble at all to recognize the superiority, the absolute superiority of PlayStation release rosters, and I would not allow any existing bias to impact my analysis of business strategy. That being said, I perceive this to be a one-sided conflict in the macro, despite the micro painting a significantly different picture. Before going further, a word from today's sponsor who makes it possible for me to keep doing what I do. Short and sweet. Surfshark is offering incredible value as a VPN. A VPN keeps your data secure, it can let you change geographic regions to watch different Netflix shows all around the world because of licensing deals. It keeps your IP hidden, and they allow for unlimited devices on a single account, which is excellent value. Surfshark also offers 85% off and 3 months free when signing up with code Echelon, and there's a link down below to their website and that deal. I have now personally used Surfshark for the better part of a year because it's fast, responsive, clean, and cost-effective. I don't think I'll ever go back to life without a VPN. I probably honestly won't. And in the modern age of data security anxiety and the importance for privacy, neither should you. Again, link down below, surfshark.deals/echelon, and enter code Echelon for the discount. Big thank you to them for supporting the channel. Back on task. Specs don't sell consoles. They help, that is without question, but purely based on the technical performance and system specifications, players will not unilaterally side with one or the other. This is a concept that both companies, Sony and Microsoft, appear to have learned in the past. Microsoft learned it most recently with the Xbox One X, not to be confused with the Xbox Series X, and after touting the release as the world's most powerful console, they appear to have somewhat abandoned that marketing strategy. Specs matter in the short term. Obviously, you can't have a drastically underpowered console that looks like garbage or no one will want to play it, but what matters more than incremental and negligible performance or FPS superiority is value. The perceived value of the PlayStation 5, largely owing to the popularity of the PlayStation 4, is currently, in my opinion at least, much higher. And this is a product of, in large part, the number of exclusive titles that they will offer. Exclusivity is a tried and true tactic for cultivating a captivated player base. Some of them may not even want to be there, honestly, but when you have something that no one else offers and it's a product that is very desirable, that comes with a certain degree of guaranteed success. Just look at Epic Games, for example. Their entire storefront is built off the back of exclusivity deals, which capture the immediate player attention and enroll them in the endemic user base. The tactic works, and Sony, with both the PlayStation 4 and now 5, is adopting a similar battle strategy. There will be plenty of people who buy a PlayStation 5 purely because they know that certain future titles will only be offered there on that platform. Another great example that transcends even one particular game itself is Spider-Man in Marvel's Avengers. The entire Marvel Avengers game, at least to me personally, looks like a janky, lazy cash grab, but I could be wrong. Either way, superheroes, they sell, and Spider-Man is without question a very popular one. The entire self-contained Spider-Man story arc and hero are barred behind the wall of exclusivity and will only be available on PlayStation 4, which will boost the short-term sales, yes, and reel in a section of the player base. However, while doing so, it absolutely breeds resentment. It's an unfortunate reality, but some players who support the PlayStation 4 and 5 will crow with laughter and glee as their peers suffer and lose out on content that they enjoy. The tactic of exclusivity does not cultivate an atmosphere of cohesion in the player base, and instead it stokes the flames of community discord. This is much more understandable with first-party titles. When Microsoft itself develops or publishes a game, or Sony, through their subsidiaries, produces a first-party IP franchise, having that be fully or partially exclusive is completely understandable. But when efforts are made to wall off content that would otherwise most likely be available to all players with some sort of exclusivity deal, it can have short-term gains but long-term community impression problems. Exclusivity can be perceived as value for the existing audience, but in reality it absolutely isn't. The games aren't cheaper on PlayStation 5 as exclusives, they are just restricted to that platform alone. Spider-Man being on one platform by itself for those that already own the platform might seem like good value, but if we think of it from a different angle, it completely changes. Spider-Man most likely would have been available to everyone, including PS4 players, with no exclusivity deal. However, Sony, in an effort to acquire new players onto their platform, has restricted that to about 1/3 of the entire player base at large. Effectively, they eliminated value for 2/3 of the entire gaming community, and simply did not eliminate the existing value and content for their own subsection. Now compare this to Microsoft and their Game Pass initiative. There are still examples of exclusivity to be sure. Halo Infinite, an upcoming exclusive from Microsoft in a long-standing line of Halo games, has now been delayed, which will hurt them short-term, by the way, but is a perfect example of first-party IP being leveraged by the company that owns it. However, their general tactics and developing business model are substantially different than Sony. The Game Pass is described as a Netflix for video games and contains over 100 different titles for a monthly fee. Understanding that most major video games are not constructed with the intention of being a perpetual player experience, many try, but in reality that genre is mostly constricted to looter shooters, maybe PvP titles more often, and MMORPGs most of all, but most console video games have some sort of expected average completion time. Game Pass for Xbox includes over 100 different games, and to be fair, it does not have some of the tentpole franchises that capture the most attention. Certain games from Sony are just undeniably superior to what is offered elsewhere, by and large, so the Game Pass cannot be advertised as the ultimate gaming purchase, but for $10 a month with over 100 games and growing, it provides value that is beyond any question superior to an individual purchase at the same price tag. I doubt it's necessary to fully break down here, but the cost to benefit ratio is larger than any singular purchase could ever be. Now, this does come with the added insecurity of being entirely digital. You get banned, gone. Your internet's out, tough luck. Revocation of individual license, yeah, you can't really do anything about that at all. And physical games will always carry a superior element of personal security, unless you break the hardware, I guess, which is hard for me to argue against, but maybe I'm just old-fashioned. Convenience isn't necessarily everything to me. However, speaking purely from a dollars and cents perspective, it's not even close. Microsoft, with their Game Pass subscription, blow Sony out of the water for value in every conceivable sense of the word. But that's not all. Microsoft will also begin bundling their xCloud service in with the Game Pass subscription, which will offer game streaming as well. Now, this is probably pure speculation, and I could easily be wrong, but when Microsoft acquired Mixer, the streaming service competitor to Twitch, now shut down as well, I believe that actually competing within that specific market was only one of their goals. The other was to acquire the tech, because Mixer had some level of resources, perceivably, invested into the streaming technology without a doubt, and that might, or could have at least, been used to help develop their xCloud service to an upgraded point. They also went about multi-million dollar exclusivity streamer deals, which blew up in a rather spectacular fashion when they shut down, but I find it hard to believe they went in on that platform just for the purpose of competing with Twitch, which was and is comparatively an absolute juggernaut. Game streaming, at least in my humble opinion, clearly isn't ready yet. Just look at Google Stadia as an example and the catastrophe of that abomination. To be fair, they also priced certain games higher than their counterparts, which was idiotic, and launched with a myriad of technical issues as well, but it's highly probable that despite short-term flaws, game streaming will improve, and when it does, there will be a market for it if the current problems can be ironed out. Microsoft is aiming to bundle these things together. Value in the form of a massive subscription library, streaming so you can access it from more locations regardless of hardware, and it's not an endeavor that is likely to upset the market here and now, but the value is only increasing, while PlayStation and Sony are, as of their outward-facing business maneuvers, remaining somewhat stagnant right now. Xbox is becoming an ecosystem. Backwards compatibility is a key focal point here, and what you own carries forwards instead of becoming a whole new self-contained cycle with each new box. The Xbox is just that, exactly that, a box. Your game library and everything else involved are a persistent content collective that will now transcend the simple hardware. Sony, on the other hand, is perhaps making strides towards such a thing, I don't know, but it's not accelerating towards it in any comparable sense. Think of the battle between consoles as a sort of abstract MMA fight, I guess. At the start, both fighters are boxing, just boxing, but suddenly one of them starts throwing kicks. This is an advantage. There's more there, more power, more combos, more angles of attack, and if the other boxer does not evolve, they will inevitably face hardship. They can still win, it's not impossible, but in the short term, they might even start to land more technical points through their comfortability with the existing tactics and the relatively novice approach of their opponent to this new method, but over time, this will change, and eventually, one fighter is at a significant disadvantage. Game streaming and value pass methodology, when it's ready, that's a really big ask though, when it's ready and polished, it will win. We don't buy a DVD now every time we want to watch a movie. We just don't do that. I would argue it's a better, if somewhat archaic medium, physical versus digital. I'm really old-fashioned that way, but in a world that's moving lightning fast and technology just goes really, really quickly, we're moving past that. We just are. Game Pass plus xCloud plus a cohesive backwards compatibility focus is a long bow, while just exclusives and restricted content, that's a short bow. The last point of note, however, is price. This would be a short-term single-generation advantage if there even is another branded generation of Xbox, which seems rather doubtful now given their approach, but price will determine the near-term public perception of victory and position either Sony or Microsoft better for future endeavors. The console market is casual. I don't say that in a pejorative way, though sometimes the word can have that meaning. I say it in a sense that they know the hardware is inferior to a self-built PC. They know the performance will be worse overall as well, and they just don't care. It's usually about budget gaming, and more often a familiarity with the platform. If we recognize that budget gaming is a very high-profile motivation for a lot of these players, the cost of a new console will absolutely matter. Plus or minus $100 for one or the other will have a drastic impact on their initial order volume. But if we try to look forward, value and budget gaming might really only align with one of these platforms in the long term. All of this sounds like a giant Microsoft shill. I get it, but I don't really mean it that way. PS4 has better aspects. It has far superior exclusives, without a doubt. That's not even in question. And I'm fresh off the heels of experiencing that firsthand for myself. I just played Ghost of Tsushima and loved it. The game is phenomenal, and PS4 locking it down to their system alone is a big deal. But in the category of value and cohesion, Xbox is running while PlayStation is kind of walking. They might trip, Xbox might that is, but if they don't fall too hard, they are going to gain significant ground. Bottom line, this is currently a one-sided war. Microsoft is basically fighting to end the console war outright, not through technical victory in the current format, but by changing the entire game. And Sony is continuing to execute business strategies it has done well with in the past, absolutely, but that are very unlikely to continue performing if Xbox were to succeed. No matter how you look at it, the war is one-sided. Microsoft isn't even fighting it the same anymore, while Sony goes after exclusive content as a cornerstone, yet again, and if they fail, the war may continue, but even partial success on the part of Microsoft will change the entire industry. None of this diminishes the legitimacy of playing either existing platform. You can love your PS4 or your Xbox One or hell, your PlayStation 2, which was the best one in my personal opinion. Jak and Daxter was super legit. But if we take 3 steps backward to the macro, this console war looks less and less like a war with each passing day. And again, to reiterate, it appears to be completely one-sided. But that's it. If you want support, please consider subscribing on locals.com. I just got offered a Raid Shadow Legends sponsorship, and I obviously won't be taking it, though touche to them for knowing how exactly to torture me. But as a buffer to make sure I never will take it or anything like it in the same arena, I'll keep promoting Locals as an alternative financial support network. It's the place I interact most with the community, posting scripts, polls, discounts, and eventually names will be in the video credits as well. So check that out if you have any interest in supporting on a monthly basis. But that's it for real. There are other links, another gaming YouTuber to support as well, Twitter, social media, etc., but I'll cut it there and stop rambling. As always, thank you all for watching, and have a nice night.